Yeah. Yep, this has been cooking for a minute here, but yeah, I feel a rant coming on. I do. And I think it's a legitimate rant. I have got a beef with a whole bunch of people out there, and you know who you are. You're the people who bail on your senior dog when it needs you the most. You're the people who decide that now that your dog is a little old and maybe a little expensive and a little inconvenient, that you're going to dump that animal off at the pound, at the Humane Society, on the side of the road, because you don't want to do the job you signed up for and take care of your animal in its senior years. Worse, you're probably going to go out and get yourself another dog, most likely buy it from some puppy mill, because that's the kind of people that do this crap. And then you're going to do the same thing to that dog in 7-8 years. So for me, in addition to the work that I do with the animals here on our property, our nonprofit, if you were to follow me on Facebook, you would see that I spend a ton of time networking dogs that have been unhomed and need help. And most of these dogs have just been failed by their human. But the most egregious, the worst, are the perfectly nice, totally lovable, easy dogs that had committed the unspeakable crime of getting old on you and needing a little bit of help. Maybe they're going to the bathroom in the house a tiny bit. Maybe you got to spend some money on medical care. Maybe they're a little deaf, or they've gotten a little Alzheimer type dementia and they're a little more difficult to manage now. Maybe they're just not so fun. They need to be helped upstairs, or you got to lift them into the car, or they need special food. Guess what, man? When you got yourself a dog, that is what you signed up for. You signed up for not, well, it's easy and convenient, not, well, it's fun and puppy. You signed up for the whole life experience of your animal. And just bailing out on it because now it's not so easy for you, and not giving a damn about what's going to happen to that animal. And, you know, if it's lucky, it's going to get networked by me and other people that actually love dogs, and we're going to help it find a soft landing with somebody else who has the decency, the compassion, the resources to take care of the dog that you dumped. People like you should not only not be allowed to ever have a dog again, but you ought to be fined $10,000, because that's a minimum lifetime care on a senior animal that somebody else is now going to pick up the slack because you didn't have the decency, the compassion, the ethics to do the job you signed up for. It's unspeakable that this is what you do. Dogs, especially dogs that you've had their whole life, have given you everything they can. Their love, their loyalty, their unconditional care for you as their human family leader. They are counting on you to be an appropriate steward of the animal. They are counting on you to make sure that, especially in their senior years, they have a soft cushion and a warm place and loving hands and good food, and not be dumped in some frickin' cage with 50 other dogs that are all desperate for homes, and now because you're old, you're undesirable. I mean, I know what that's like. I'm 58, and I know that when you get to a certain age, you know, it's like if you have to go out into the workforce and try to find a job and you're near 60, it ain't easy. So imagine if you're a dog and now you're competing with 2- and 3-year-old dogs and you got some issues. unless there's somebody amazing, you're probably going to die in that shelter, either quickly or slowly. And that didn't need to happen. Our last Malamute, the old Malamute, Bixby, passed this year in April. He was almost 14, which for a giant breed Malamute is 5 years longer than life expectancy. It's way long. And for the last couple of years of his life, he started to have some health challenges. And one of the first things that happened was he started to have some wear and tear on his rear end, and he started to get some weakness in his back end. And we took him to a rehabilitation center, and they gave us a bunch of exercises to do. And then we followed up like every 3 months, and they were shocked at how good a job. They said nobody, I couldn't believe it. They said nobody that we prescribe exercises to follows through like you. They could tell just by the way he performed on physical assessments that we had done the work. And not only had we done the work, but my wife and I decided that swimming him, getting the weight off his body, was really, really important for keeping him physically fit without adding more stress. And so my wife would stand in 54-degree water and hold him back so that he would basically swim gym for 15 to 20 minutes a couple of days a week. And then he started to have some kidney dysfunction. And 5 days a week, we infused fluids into this guy to keep his kidneys healthy. And then at the very end, he started to have some fecal incontinence. And we adapted our home to clean up after him. And finally, on the very last weeks of his life, he started to have really significant physical failure, and he couldn't stand on his own. And we brought a harness and we carried him around so that he could move and go to the bathroom and still have a normal life. And it was our privilege to care for our old man in this way until the last moments of his life when he passed in our kitchen. And then we buried him on our property intact without any other human ever having to handle him, because that is how much we respect our dogs. And yet every single day I see dogs in the shelter. Ah, damn. This upsets me so much. It's hard for me to get across to you as somebody that has devoted his whole life to primitive dogs in particular, that there are Jack-Wagons out there in the world that just dump their dog the minute it's a little inconvenient, and then they just go and get a new one, and they just kick those problems down the road to somebody else without a care in the world. I'm not going to say what I wish would happen to you, because it'll probably get me kicked off the platforms, but you know who you are. You know who you are, and what I will say is, number one, karma is a bitch. It's a bitch. And I hope for you that when you're 78 years old and you're starting to need some help, that your family decides you just ain't worth the time and you end up in some miserable situation where you can't even wipe your own ass. Because that's what you deserve for doing that to your dog. And I don't know, this may or may not make me more or less popular with people that care about dogs. I don't care. You should do better by your canine companions. You owe it to them to do better. And you owe it to the community of people that care about dogs not to put upon others your responsibility while you continue to add to the problem. Every shelter is full. Every sanctuary is full. Every person like me that has committed their lives to trying to help dogs is overburdened already. And because you can't be bothered to be a responsible pet owner, you're adding to an already tsunami-sized problem. So do better. And know there's people watching you. Know there's people that are trying to clean up your mess, because you are an ignorant, selfish, inconsiderate, unethical POS. Yeah, you are.